what's going on, y'all? I wanted to take a moment before the show just to say something. And what I want to say is thank you. The last 2 weeks of me and my family's life were really hard. The last 2 weeks really showed me a lot about mental health and pain. And I wanted to say thank you to each and every individual person that took time out of their day, that showed love from their heart to me, my daughter, and my wife. I think about what it is like to be in an emergency situation where you could potentially lose a loved one when you're right there in the middle of it. And it's something that for me, it was a series of moments that I will never forget. And in this time of uncertainty, the fact that so many of you reached out, you offered so many things, but most importantly, you offered yourself. I truly treasure that. I do. And I'm happy to say that my wife is home. She's here with us. She's smiling. She's thriving. And honestly, there's really nothing more that I could ask for. So to all of you who shared your love loudly, and those of you who shared your love quietly, thank you so much for loving us. Thank you so much for being a part of our lives. We appreciate you. We love you. And we hope to continue the work that we're doing. Because we truly feel like what we are able to accomplish together will truly bring a much needed light to the world. I wanted to also say this as well, because this is very important. If you or anyone that you know or love is having thoughts of suicide or contemplating suicide, I urge you, I beg you, I plead to you, reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. The world is better with you in it. Trust me, it is. Everyone, thank you. Thank you so much. And now, let's start the show. Hey yo, what's going on everyone? This is your host, Tarad Rashawn, and you are now tuned into Taradcast. For all of the brand new listeners out there listening to our show for the very first time, welcome. And for all of you returning listeners, happy that we are back on the airwaves. I just want to say welcome back. Now at Taradcast, you can take everything we say with a grain of salt. We simply just want to add some flavor to your meal. So if we are doing that, then we are doing our job. Today's episode is about a topic that to me is something that I've had to truly learn and hone in on and concentrate on in order to give me the understanding of myself that I have today. And I can't wait to talk about this topic with you all. So without further ado, today's episode topic is the obscurity of emotional maturity. This is Taradcast. Let's get it. Yo, what is up, y'all? I hope y'all ain't forget my name yet. My name is Tarad Rashawn, and you are listening to Taradcast. Y'all are gonna have to forgive me. I took my laziness into consideration when doing this unofficial 3-part series, and I kept the intro the same just for the simple fact of eliminating more work. So please forgive me. I will do my best going forward, especially when I have impromptu series like this, and I will continue to make them high quality and unique. But thank you all once again for tuning in. And today, of course, as you heard, we are talking about the obscurity of emotional maturity. And we are wrapping all of this up. I am glad that you all have stayed with me for this particular topic. And it's one that, as you already know, it's near and dear to my heart. I am passionate about it. And I want to communicate this information that I have learned in the best and most clear way possible, because I feel like as we implement the types of practices that will allow us to gain emotional maturity, we will be better off. We will completely and utterly be better off. And so I know over the last 2 episodes, I identified a lot of problems, and there were some solutions in there. But when it comes to my method of tackling conversations, I want to always also address the solutions, because I feel like so many of us, when it comes to different things that we think about, we focus a lot on the problem. The problem is the most relevant thing on our minds at that moment. And I wanted to bring some solutions to the table as we wrap this particular series up. And so I hope that you all will stay with me. I hope that you all are still keeping your water close by. I said cleeping because I am so used to doing house cleeping at the beginning of these episodes. It's throwing me off. But I want to start looking at solutions and how to really start taking emotional maturity into consideration when it comes to bettering ourselves. And these are things that even for me, I continue to think about and do everything I can to implement on a daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly basis. And so I appreciate you all just being here for this particular topic. And you know what? Let's just go ahead and get right into it, shall we? All right, y'all. So let's talk about from obscurity to maturity. So as we stated earlier, a lot of us react before we ever think to respond. And I want to talk about why it is important to develop a habit of responding over reacting. I feel like when it comes to responses, they are more respected. They are more heard. You know, you don't just experience the emotions behind what is said, but you experience what is actually said and what has brought about the emotions behind it. We have to consider the fact that when we are met with a situation that triggers us in an emotional way, if we're met with a conversation that triggers us in an emotional way, when we move to address that, we need to do so in a way that acknowledges and honors those aspects. The emotions, the person, and the words themselves. Because at that point, like I said before, it truly makes a person feel heard. And if you are able to make a person feel heard, then they are more so inclined to hear you when you are in that state. So many of us are so quick to dismiss people when it comes to situations like these, because all that we hear, all that we perceive is the emotions. We don't actually feel and comprehend what's being said. And that leads to misunderstandings all across the board. So we can first start by responding, taking everything in, digesting that, and then formulating our response afterward, even if it is in opposition to what's being communicated to you. You know, a lot of people like to say, let's agree to disagree. And I'm completely fine with that terminology. I am. You know, I don't think it is a bad thing when people have opposing arguments and they understand that they are not going to come to a resolution on this particular topic. But what I respect is, even if there is no resolution, there is at least a respect for one another's thoughts and opinions. There is honor towards one another's thoughts and opinions. I feel like giving one another the space to have these conversations is crucial. Because when we start to truly take into consideration what another person may be feeling or experiencing or bringing to your attention when they approach you, then this creates respect. It provides the security needed to be okay in your vulnerability. So many people don't have that. You know what I mean? So many people don't understand the impact of that. And that is where so many of us fall short. All the time. So many of us fall short. Because we don't take time to understand where a person is truly coming from. Like, listen, imagine a world where everyone felt understood. Everyone had the potential to be heard fully. You know, like I was watching the Red Table Talk that happened not too long ago with Niecy Nash and her wife, and she was bringing up a lot of really good points. You know, she really was, and it made me think about the male-female dynamic in a relationship. because I hear all the time that so many women live life with a man who does not make them feel heard. They reduce their emotions and their feelings and their passion about a certain subject or conversation or topic to a woman being emotional. And because so many of us men don't want to dive deep into our own emotions, we leave it at that. We leave those conversations dangling. We leave a lot of our women unfulfilled. Because it's not that we don't hear them, it's just that we don't know how to hear them. So that's why I said what I said earlier about taking all things into consideration, about being accountable, and really taking time to search yourself to see what you can do in this situation to be part of the solution. I feel like so many arguments are they're tainted because all that they do is go in circles addressing the issue without giving time or even the chance to try and develop a solution. You know, people say that men are the logical ones and women are the emotional ones. And I get that. You know, I do. But at the same time, and I was even talking with my wife about this, men can learn so much from women and vice versa. Because when it comes to understanding emotions, a man should be able to look at a woman and learn what it looks like to allow your emotions to flow. So that way the realest, truest part of you is on display. And when it comes to women who look at men for strength, they can look at a man and see what it takes to uphold that sense of strength, to have that power, to be able to be a leader whenever the time calls for it. There's so much that we can learn from one another if we stop reducing one another to simple traits and we start adopting those traits that empower us and make us who we are as individuals. Because when we start doing that, I find that this is what it means to be well-rounded in your approach, to be well-rounded in your thinking, to be well-rounded in your conversation. Because when, for example, if I'm speaking with a woman about a heavy topic, I want to be able to relate to her on a way where when I sense that there is an emotional stake in this conversation, and she is explaining to me the contents and the details that are fueling this emotional stake, I want to be able to honor that. So that way she does not feel dismissed. I want to be able to look into her eyes and get to a point where I can see into her mind. So that way the validity of what she is expressing to me feels true to me. Because for me, I want to understand her emotions. I want to understand the root causes. You know, so many of us, we think about the symptoms of the sickness and not the sickness itself, the core, the root of it, what's causing it. It's like medicine. You know, they have Tylenol, Advil, Motrin, ibuprofen, all this stuff to alleviate the pain that you may be feeling. but we're not addressing the cause of the pain itself. And so all we're doing is putting a Band-Aid over it. Like, this isn't new information. It's not new information, I promise you. But it's important information. Because I feel like understanding emotional maturity will improve all aspects of your relationships. I feel like it will improve every facet in your life when it comes to dealing with people in all ways, from family to friends to relationships to parenthood, all of that. You know? Like, I really believe that. I believe that with all my heart, all my soul, all my being. I feel like there are so many of us who do not look at emotional maturity seriously. I feel like we dismiss it so often, and we reduce it to the smallest value so often, that so many of us have grown to mistrust one another. Like, I find that to be a tragedy, especially in our community. Because we continue this perpetual process of creating broken people, whether it's the two people in the relationship or the children that they have, the family members they impact, whatever. We continuously have this perpetual cycle of releasing broken people into the world, people that need to be fixed, and people jumping into relationships where their goal is to fix the person, but they need to fix themselves. Don't be a victim to the obscurity of emotional maturity. Be a victor, be a survivor, be a thriver, and understand that emotional maturity will provide a blanket understanding to how people work. And when you have that, any and all relationships that you have will thrive. All right, look, if I can get just a bit raw for a second, think about how much it would turn your partner on to know that you hear them, you feel them, and you understand them. Think about that. Think about how dope that would be if your significant other, beyond the shadow of a doubt, knew that you understood them. They wouldn't have to go anywhere else in order to feel heard and seen and accepted. Think about that. Think about what it would mean to your partner to know that you are never hesitant to communicate. You are never hesitant to express yourself. You are never hesitant to listen. Think about that. Now, I really want you to think about that, because I'm just going to say this. On the base level, I know the sex would be fire. It would. I'm telling you, I'm trying to put this in terms where you would understand, because this is one of those aspects of relationships where vulnerability meets security, especially in an act like this, where it is the two of you loving on one another in the most sacred physical manifestation of connection possible. Just think about how fire that would be. Just think about all the different, you know what? Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. I am. But just think about that though. Because I feel like even in that aspect, Emotional maturity comes with the certainty that you fully understand, acknowledge, and respect your partner. Like it's so funny how many people reduce it down to the physical. And I feel like that is where a lot of the different fantasies come into play, especially in porn. Like, this isn't a podcast talking about sex and porn and all that for this episode. I have Under the Moon episodes on Patreon for those. But I feel like even in this particular type of sex industry, sex work, all of it is reliant on how physical can you make it be. You know, I remember I watched the movie a long time ago called Zack and Miri Make a Porno. And I remember, spoiler alert, one of the last scenes is the couple coming together and making love. And in their heads, it was the most intense, passionate lovemaking ever created. And their friends were filming it and all that. And in their heads, it was explosive. But to the eye, it looked basic. You know, that says a lot. That says a lot, because all throughout that movie, they were doing all this stuff. There was such a disconnect in a way. You know, the mission was the movie, but in the end, they found that coming together, understanding one another, meant so much more, and what they were able to feel from that meant so much more. And even though from the outside it didn't look as explosive and graphic and explicit as a lot of the other videos that people watch on all of the porn sites that are out here, to them it was everything. It was everything. Nobody else needed to know or understand or see what they felt, because they knew. They reached that point of understanding. And that was something that changed them from that point forward. You know, I believe that being mature in your emotions offers a level of security that ensures your well-being, as well as the assurance that those you love are understood and they are secure in that understanding. I can't tell y'all how important of a word security is. So much of what we often are made to think about, what we are forced to think about, we don't have to think about when we are secure. We don't have to wonder. We don't have to speculate. We don't have to do any of that, because there's no need. When we look at someone, when we look at a person, we see them for who they are and what they bring. And in turn, they do the same for us without question and without having to be asked. But the only way to reach security is to reach emotional maturity. It's the only way. It is the only way. Because so many of us will quickly, and I mean quickly, shoot down someone. Because we don't want to put the time, effort, and energy into understanding them. We don't want to do it. You know why? Because it takes work. It involves work. It involves accountability. It involves sometimes being wrong. I know this for a fact. There have been so many times where I have been shown myself. I've been told about myself to my face. There are things that I had to really look at and dive into, because if I let those things go unchecked, I would continue perpetuating destruction of people that I wanted to be close with, that wanted to be close with me. I would continue this perpetual cycle. And sure, I was a nice guy. I was a Christian guy back then. I wanted everybody to make it into heaven, but at the same time, I was not emotionally mature to understand that just because I was a virgin all the way up till 23, and just because I didn't smoke or I didn't drink or, I didn't do all this stuff, I thought that I was better than so many people. And that came out in how I addressed people. That came out in how I looked at people. That came out in what I said on social media. I'm still going through those Facebook memories and deleting those posts. I seriously lacked emotional maturity. I lacked it. It didn't exist. Because if you didn't agree with my opinion, then there was nothing to agree on. And I wasn't about to let you try and dispute what I'm saying. You could not challenge me because I did not want to hear it. And if you were trying to force me to hear it, I would make my voice so loud to where I would do everything in my power to drown you out. Like I said an episode or two ago, people like me, I'm not even going to say people like that, people like me back then, if we were hurt, if we were challenged, if we felt like we were being attacked, then we wanted to attack harder so that we would not feel pain. We would not feel defeat. We would be secure in our rightness, in our righteousness. And it took a slew of rude awakenings to shake me of that. But I'm glad that I was shaken of that. Because it wouldn't have served me. It wouldn't serve me now. There's no way that I'd be able to move forward and even talk to y'all and actually feel like what I'm saying is honest. Emotional maturity, it cannot continue being an obscurity. It can't. It can't. Because when it goes left alone for too long, it grows and it festers and it manifests into a personality that becomes unbearable. It becomes a force of destruction to anyone caught in its wake. And for so many of us, especially us as black men, we feel like having any sort of emotional response, emotional tie, emotional stake, we feel like having that outside of situations where people die is feminine. We don't want that coursing through our bones. We don't want that. It makes us feel less hard, you know? But we are missing out on so many potential life-changing relationships because of it. Because we actively refuse to understand the value of emotions. That's why I said that it offers complete security when you understand your emotions. That's why I said that when it comes to your well-being, you'll be secure in that when it comes to mastering your emotions. It means that you are aware of all sides of an argument or situation, and you acknowledge that another side exists, even if you don't agree. It is okay. It shows more that you decide not to agree, but you can at least give the opposing argument the opportunity to state their case. Because even if you don't agree, you at least know that this frame of mind, this method of thinking exists. It encourages education. It encourages learning. Why are we so scared of that? Why are we so afraid of that? Why do we feel like when we are set in our ways, that is all that there is to it? You know, I look at my barber. I've known my barber ever since I was 16. It's this year it'll be 15 years that I've known my barber. And when I think about who he is, like, he asks me to do a lot. He asks me to, to help him out when it comes to, understanding his computer and, to create a business page here and, just to figure out how to operate a phone or set up an account, things like that. Like, he asks me stuff like that all the time. And I appreciate it. I do it every single time. Because it shows me that for him, he's in a state of continuous learning. If there's something that he can't get on his own, he will call somebody like me to help guide him through it, so that way he can duplicate that process. And I respect him for that. I do. I highly respect him. He's like another father figure to me. And when I look at these situations, I realize the value in that, and not being afraid to ask, not caring how it makes you look, because the end result is going to be knowledge and skill. Where there was once a time I couldn't do something before, because you showed me, I will be able to do it going forward. Like, that says so much to me about his emotional maturity. Because there are a lot of people who would just be content. They would just, just sit there and bask and relish in the fact and throw their hands up and say, I don't know. They won't try to seek knowledge. They won't use Google. They won't reach out to a friend or a family member or anything. They'll just sit there. And they will let a potentially beneficial skill pass them by because they don't want to appear a certain way, right? But props to those who know when to ask, because it's very emotionally mature of you. This type of conversation is one that, for me, it continues to open my eyes to the various types of people who exist. And I understand that these types of topics are not going to be the spicy or controversial or, awe-inspiring topics that go viral or things like that. And quite frankly, I'm not necessarily concerned with that. I could sit here and talk about people like Derek Jackson all day, but I don't want to, because I have to live my own life. And there are people in my life that I have the ability and the opportunity to positively impact from an honest perspective. To let them know that when it comes to me, I want to do everything I can to make sure that what you feel from me is genuine. And that's what I want to focus on. That's who I want to focus on. Because I feel like we spend so much time diverting our attention to people and issues that mean nothing. Because all kinds of people exist in this world. It doesn't mean that everyone is for you. especially if they refuse to take the idea of their own emotional maturity or emotional immaturity into consideration when it comes to interacting with you. But you know what? I don't want to go off into a rabbit hole of anger. I don't. That's not always what this show is about. I promise. And so I want to switch gears and just really start communicating and encouraging the development of emotional maturity. Because I truly believe that it would help all of us to eliminate many of our issues without being swayed or manipulated by people who seek to exploit us. I feel like when we understand that, when we truly make that a pinnacle of who we are as a person, we will have thriving communities. We will have stronger individuals and stronger families, actual families. We will have less drama. We will have less single mother household. We will have fewer incarcerations. We will have fewer children wondering why my father left me. There is so much to gain from understanding and being mature in your emotions. There's so much. You will be able to gain the whole world and never lose your soul. So think about that, prophet. Okay? Think about that. Because I feel like when we take the time to think about that, we will find ourselves in positions that don't rely on being victims, that don't rely on how we feel about white people, that don't rely on being under the foot, the hypothetical, theoretical foot of a system that is knocking on our hypothetical, theoretical door every day and handing us a pamphlet saying how they are going to disrupt our lives today. Emotional maturity will strengthen us in any and all ways. We just have to let it happen. We have to be open to it. We have to be receptive to it. We have to hear it. We have to feel it. We have to taste it. When we go to sleep, we have to dream about it. And so I want to say this. Let's do our part in bringing emotional maturity out of obscurity and make it more of a familiarity. And I feel like when we do that, the wheat will separate itself from the chaff. And you know what? That's okay. Not everybody is supposed to go to the levels that we are going when we are truly and positively trying to make a change within ourselves. And so for those who don't want any of that, for those who refuse to make emotional maturity a part of their character, let them stay at the bottom. Whether they look like you or not, it doesn't matter. This involves everyone. So let them stay at the bottom. you rise to the top. And you will encounter those who are striving to do the same thing right alongside you. Continue to build one another up. Continue to become more emotionally mature. And you will find yourself being naturally opened up to love, to honor, and to respect because of it. So with that being said, y'all, that is our show. That is the end of this series. Thank you all for rocking with me. Thank you all for being a part of this. Got some great episodes coming up very soon, and I cannot wait to share those topics with you now that we're back in full swing. So with that being said, you all know how to find us. You all know how to support us. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review and also take the conversation to our throne room. Links along with everything else are in the show notes. And as always, wherever you are, whomever you are, I want to continue encouraging you to be more introspective and vulnerable with yourself. Know who you are, trust in who you are, love who you are. I've been your host, and will continue being your host, Tarad Rashan. And this has been another episode of Taradcast. Thank you all so much for listening. And with that, I hope that you make every effort to find and keep your peace. Till next time.